Hello, I'm Kevin Church, and for this month, June 2019, our MUFIC Songwriter of the Month is Ron Daniel. How you doing, Ron?
Great to be here.
Awesome. Good to see you, buddy. So tell me a little bit about, we're just going to get to it. Did you come from a musical family?
My father was a musician, and all my brothers play music, but other than my father, I don't know of any other relatives that were particularly musical, so I think he passed it on to all the boys.
So was there any influences that happened with your dad and his musical taste or anything?
Um, he played in a band in high school and college, and he played brass instruments, and he was always a lover of music, and we always had high-end audio in the home. Always had a great stereo, reel-to-reel, great speakers, and he and my mom loved listening to great music from the 50s and 60s, and then in my later childhood, the 70s. So there was always fantastic music playing in the home, and that always really influenced me a lot because I got to hear, some of the greatest musicians of all time, you know, uh, being played in the house.
Gotcha. So they influenced you to start writing songs?
No,
How did that start?
no, my family growing up was always a music-loving family, but I had a couple brothers take piano lessons, and one brother really took off with piano. But other than that, nobody really played instruments or anything, and there was never any encouragement to become a musician. I think my parents always wanted to make sure that we got real jobs, and you know, so there was never any push or any kind of influence to get into music. But I got into it in high school, and I wanted to be someone like Eddie Van Halen or Angus Young. I wanted to play really great lead guitar and be in a rock band and that whole thing. And then I got to college and sort of found mellower stuff like Crosby, Stills and Nash and Bob Dylan and Grateful Dead and a lot of great 60s music. And of course, in the late 80s, every kid had an acoustic guitar in the dorm room. And so up and down the hall, there were people banging on six strings night and day. And that made me want to pick one up and learn to play, and so that I could sing, because I loved to sing but never had anyone to accompany me. And I figured the guitar was a good way to be able to sing.
That's great. So when did you write your first song then? In college, or what happened?
No, I
All
started
that.
playing guitar and singing covers in '87, and never felt like I could write because there were so many great artists I was doing covers of. I just felt intimidated and thought, what can I do? I'm not talented like that. I'm just blessed to be able to play a little bit and sing. And I just never wrote. I just enjoyed doing covers, and never really thought much about writing. Maybe here and there I would think about it, but I just never thought I would be able to do it. And I didn't actually start writing until about 2 years ago.
Really? Tell me more about that. 2 years. I mean, that's a lot of living.
Yeah, I started playing open mics about 4 years ago. I didn't even play out in front of anyone until 4 years ago. I just was very private with it, always a little shy. And about 4 years ago, I started playing open mics, and I played lots of open mics. And I used to play the Ice House here in Somerville. And one night, a friend of mine came up, and he said, I've been watching you and listening to you, and, you really do a good job with the covers. You have a great voice. You really put your all into it, but why don't you do originals? And I said, because I don't have any originals. And he laughed. He laughed in my face, and he said, oh, that's a good one. You had me going. I believed you for about 2 seconds. And I said, no, really, I don't have any originals. And then he got real serious and was scowling at me, and he said, well, that's really selfish of you. And I said, what are you talking about, selfish? And he said, you've told me all these life experiences you've had and all these things you've done, and you've lived a rich life, and obviously you have the ability to sing and play, and it's really wrong of you to keep all those stories and things inside and not share them with the world. And he actually said, you're a selfish bastard and you need to re-examine your life.
He said that to you, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I just blew it off. I said, well, you know, he's had a few too many scotch and waters. He's, you know, he's full of himself. Who is he to tell me how to live my life? I don't need to be scolded by somebody. I'm happy doing covers, and that's that. But for the next 3 or 4 days, his thoughts and what he had said was eating at me and bothering me. And finally, I had a moment of emotional and intellectual honesty where I said, you know, he's right. I have nothing to lose by trying, and who knows, it could be good. And, you know, it's all about sharing your experiences and sharing your view of life with other people. And so I said, well, I give in. He's right. He wins. I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a song. So I spent about 3 months trying to hammer out my first song, and it was a really ugly, hard, terrible process, but I came up with a song that worked, that was passable, and I played it at an open mic one night, and nobody booed.
It's great.
A few people asked me, you know, who was the artist on that second song you did? And I said, that was an original. And everybody shook their head and said, They didn't say anything bad or good, but it inspired me to keep going because I figured, well, if that one was passable, maybe the next one will be better. And the next one took about 3 weeks, and it was better. And then I was kind of off and running and chasing the dream at that point.
That's great. So tell me more about, how about the next song? How'd that go?
Well, the third song, I decided I wanted to actually write about something. I wanted to choose my subject matter and sort of build it from the ground up. Because the first 2 songs, I was just grasping at straws. Anything that would work, I was willing to go with just to get something down on paper and have something that made sense. But the third song, I said, you know, I want to make this better. And so I kept coming up with lines and words and interesting wordplay. And I was writing little things down, little scraps of paper and collecting them. And but nothing was really coming together. And then one night late, I was watching a YouTube infomercial for Waterloo guitars, and Jeff Tweedy was being interviewed, and he said, you know, guitar players have constantly bemoaned the fact that when they walk into a guitar shop, all the guitars are too new and too nice and too pristine, and they need to have some tragedy befall them. They need to have something happen to them before they'll be ready to play, before they'll be ready to express real emotion. And he said, it's almost as if they think the guitar needs to have its heart broken or something. And when he said that, it almost knocked me out of my chair. And I said, wait a second, the guitar needs to have its heart broken. I said, that's a country song. That's a song waiting to happen. So for 3 days, I walked around saying to myself, this guitar needs to have its heart broken. And I started saying, okay, well, why? What would be the reason? And I just couldn't come up with the reason. And then one day it hit me, this guitar needs to have its heart broken so it can play the way that I feel. And that blew me out of my chair again. I said, wow, that's even better. And the rest of the song just came like manna from heaven, piece by piece. It wrote itself.
Right.
And I still think of that song as a gift. It's one of the few perfect songs out there that you wouldn't change one word. It's like a puzzle. If you changed one word, it wouldn't fit together right. But that song changed my destiny and changed my my view of songwriting. And I felt that I had done something actually great and not just adequate. And that really lit a fire that's still going today.
That's great. So tell me more about the song we'll be doing today. Is that the one we'll be doing, or?
No, that song is on the first record, and
okay.
And I've just finished my second album at Fairweather Studios with Omar Cologne, and it's finally all in the can, and we're in the mixing process now. And the song we're doing today is going to be the first track. It's going to be the lead-off track on the album, and I think it's one of the strongest songs on the album, and it's inspired by a trip I took in '96. I hitchhiked from Atlanta to California, and I got stuck at the Flying J truck stop just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I was there all afternoon, into the evening, into the late night, and I was pacing around the parking lot, and I walked over to the very edge of the parking lot and was looking out over Albuquerque, and it was a dark night. There was no moon, and all the city lights of Albuquerque were twinkling, and it was really, really a cool sight. But what made it even more interesting was the heat waves coming off the land. Even though it was 3 in the morning, there was still heat being released from the desert, and it made all the lights distorted and twinkly, and they looked like they were swimming around and moving around. And I remember thinking, you know, how far away I was from Albuquerque, even though it was just down from the hilltop. I eventually did get out of that Flying J truck stop and on to California, and eventually all the way back to Atlanta. But the song I'm doing today is inspired by that experience I had at the truck stop.
I can't wait to play on it with you. What's it called?
It's called Albuquerque.
How appropriate.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, can't wait, man. Ron Daniel, everybody.
Standing high on the hilltop, looking down from the truck stop. City lights dance like crazy diamonds, late night New Mexico heat. Out here running away from my life and the love I'll never have with you. I've slept 5,000 nights on the edge of the interstate. Still I'm too close to you. And the storm clouds deny they're the weather. The dusty road has no shame. Every twist has its turn as our memories burn. Gas station coffee so bitter that it burns a hole in your pride. Hey mister, can you spare a ride? I'm just trying so hard to get nowhere. Out here running away from my life and the love I'll never have with you. Out here running away from the truth and the life that does not include you. Out here running light years away, and still I'm not far enough from you. And the storm clouds deny they're the weather. The dusty road has no shame. Every twist has its turn as our memories burn. Standing high on the hilltop, looking down from the truck stop. City lights dance like crazy diamonds, late night New Mexico heat. Holding out hope that at least one among us is anything more than just lost.